What's up, guys, and welcome back to another Market Watch Wednesday. And yeah, a lot of cards are moving around with anticipation of set 5, and we're going to be looking at that. So before we jump into prices and things like that, I do want to take a quick moment and talk about Shimmering Skies in set 5. Yep, we did get the release this past Friday over in the LGSs, the Disney stores, all of that kind of stuff. But the thing to keep in mind is these cards have not settled yet. So we're not really going to be covering Shimmering Skies this week, but hopefully next week we'll have more data to really see where these cards are going to end up. But keep in mind, next week is when we're going to get these cards hitting the big box stores, and even more product is going to get open. So a lot of these cards have a lot of room to go up and a lot of room to go down. So I did want to just pull up the legendaries here to let you guys know that the legendaries that we kind of expected to be the top two are the top two. Naveen and Mufasa are continuing to fight over that top slot. And yeah, when this set came out at the very beginning, all the pre-orders had every one of these legendary cards at $30 or $40. You can see that they're coming down. Realistically, you may have one of these cards be a $40 card, but I don't think so. I think you're going to get a lot of these in the 30s, mid 30s, and you're going to get a lot of these to drop even further. And just keep that in mind when you're looking at pre-purchasing these cards, or even purchasing these cards once they actually fully launch next week, that there's a lot of room for these cards to continue to go down as we get into the meta of Shimmering Skies. It's also going to take a little bit of time to figure out which ones of these cards are sleepers and which one of these cards are really good, because yeah, we don't really have a DLC leveraging these cards for a couple more weeks. So keep that in mind when you're looking at buying something or building a deck or anything like that, because yeah, some of these cards, like I'm going to say Clarabelle, yeah, the card looks fine. You get to draw some cards, but if you're not shifting Clarabelle and she's coming down on turn 7 or turn 8, realistically, unless you're getting rid of your whole hand, you're probably not drawing too many cards off of it. So again, I could be totally wrong on that card, but I think right now this card was $8 2 days ago. Now it's $18, and I just can't see it being $18 in a few weeks from now, as we actually get into the meta and seeing what you're going to be using. But if I'm wrong about any of these cards, definitely let me know down in the comments. Tell me what card you're excited about Shimmering Skies. And next week, hopefully we'll have enough data to start covering these cards to let you know where they were, where they're going, up, down, all of that kind of stuff. But just keep in mind, it's going to be a couple weeks before these stabilize, which is exactly what we've seen with every other set. All right, so kicking us off on the going up cards, we're looking at the Queen Diviner. Now, she's been moving around a little bit over the last couple weeks, but right now she's sitting at $7.38. A really good card, especially with what we're going into with Sapphire Control style decks or Sapphire Ramp, big lore decks with Tamatoa, Mufasa now. And of course, having a bunch of items and being able to potentially play them for free could be really good. Now, this card has gone up 8, almost 9% over the week. And yeah, I don't know. It's going to continue to be around this price. I don't really see this card being the $30 card that we see with some of the other big legendaries, but I do think that this card will have value. The $7 mark, the $8 mark is probably a good mark. I foresee it being maybe $10 at the top, just because it's hard to fit this into the current decks. And it's really going to take something that just kind of breaks the mold, maybe with some of the new Queen stuff that you can do that takes it to a different level. But as of right now, this card is a pretty good card. It is up for the week, and I do kind of see this card kind of being around this price for a little while. The next one is the one we always talk about, the bird, which is Diablo. Now, Diablo is $31 right now, so we've officially gone over that $30 mark, and it's up about 1%. So it's up 40 cents for the week. Again, not a huge change or anything like that. I think people are still trying to figure out how they feel about Diablo without Bucky. I think people are trying to figure out how they feel about Emerald in general. But honestly, guys, this is a great card. You still have your Emerald Amber deck that, is going around right now. And this is a great card to slot in there just for the extra card draw. So this card isn't really going to go anywhere. I expect that $30 mark just to be the price of this card. It's pretty easy to remove when you have the removal spell. And I think that that's what keeps this card from being that $50 that it used to be. But I think a $30 price tag is pretty good on this. And like I said, it's gone up for the day and it's going up for the week. So next on the list is Mulan Elite Archer. Now this card is some spice and it makes perfect sense of why we're seeing this card maybe make its rise in the last couple weeks. This card now is $4.82. That is a 6% increase or 30-cent increase for the week. And it's probably going to continue to go up a little bit in the first few weeks of Shimmering Skies. This card is amazing when you shift it out and you can essentially do damage to 3 different characters. And that's the reason why this is getting so much love right now. It's a low price. Yes, it does have the double printings with it being over in the Illuminaire's quest, but this card should be a pretty good card for the first few weeks as aggro continues to be one of the top decks that people are gravitating to in these first few weeks. So the last card we're looking at in the set 4, so in Ursula's return, is going to be the Muses. Now the Muses is another one of those cards that's kind of started to come up because of that Emerald Amber deck, the Under the Sea deck that we've talked about before. This card is, 48 cents, but it is up 30% for the week, 14 cents. Again, not a huge dollar card, but definitely a huge card to mark as far as where people are looking for with the meta. Again, people picking up that deck because I think it'll still be a pretty strong deck going into, Shimmering Skies and what people are wanting to do. Being able to essentially bounce back all these aggro cards and then put them under their deck is going to be a really good pattern for this style of deck. And so this card is continuing to go up. And I don't see for now this card really coming down, but the top end of this card is probably $1. So don't worry if you didn't pick them up. You may just have to pay an extra few cents or something like that on the cards. All right, so moving back into set 3 here, we have Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood. So Robin Hood is a $41 card. This is a 10% increase for the week, so another $4 added to this card. Now, this card dropped really, really hard when Bucky got the announcement of the nerf and how he was going to get changed. Because of that, a lot of people thought that Steel, Emerald Steel, things like that were kind of dead. But as we've seen, and this is what I said weeks ago, that these cards would rebound. It was, finding that perfect spot on the lowest point to pick them up. And at this point, the card is back on the rise. It's a great card. Yes, it dies to Medusa, but a lot of stuff dies to Medusa. And at this point, they got to have it or you just keep going. And that's why this card is coming back. So yeah, if you didn't get them a little bit ago, you probably missed your chance. But this card does still have that opportunity to go up another couple dollars. A $45 card, maybe a $50 card. Not really sure. I didn't really see too many big replacements when it comes to this card and these colors for Shimmering Skies. So I still see this being a pretty big staple when it comes to steel. Next up from Inklands is Piglet. Now, Piglet is $2.81, but it's gone up 30%. So almost an entire dollar has been added to this card over the last week. And again, it's because of that aggro style deck. Whether he's being included in some kind of Steel Song aggro version or just the other aggro versions that we're seeing, Amber, Amethyst or something like that. This is just a really good card. He's a 2-drop. He can tap for 3 lore if you have other characters. And if you're an aggro deck, what you have. So this card, has the potential to continue to go up. He does have multiple printings now. So that is something that could bring his price down a little bit. I don't think it'll affect him too much, but this card, maybe $5 is the top end of the card, but definitely going to be a $3 card for a while until the meta shifts to really be able to kind of bring these aggro decks down. But right now, the card is so good in these decks and everybody's needing 4. All right, so next up is Queen's Castle. Queen's Castle is $11 right now. That is a 6% increase. So you've got 72-cent increase over the last 7 days. It took a little bit of a dip when people were trying to figure out what they were going to do for the new meta. But the fact that this card is so good, it's being put into those aggro decks we talked about. I mean, Ruby Amethyst is still going to be a deck. Whether it adds a couple new cards or not, it's still super strong. So yeah, I expect this card to continue to be a great card. It's a $10 card all day long for a while for now. So at this point, it's $11. All right, and the last card of this set that's going up is very expected. It's Lucky Dime. The Lucky Dime is $11.84. It is up 4% for the week. So again, you're looking at a 50-cent increase over the last 7 days. This is just a great card. The items is going to be huge, whether you're using Lucky Dime with a red-blue deck or you're using it with a blue-steel deck. Yeah, it's good. You got Mufasa now where it gives it another target, even if it's not as big as a Tamatoa target. It's still 4 lore. You get to be able to essentially use it when you play it with Mufasa. Again, really, really good stuff. So this card, I expect it to continue to go up over the next little bit. You have to remember this set now is being opened way less than it was. So if these decks start to take off, especially with the ability to untap stuff with Mufasa and be able to reuse the ink, to tap your dime and things like that, I do see this being more sought after. Maybe we get to be more than 2 of in a deck, but that's really what's keeping the price down right now. Is it's not a play set in a deck. It's usually 2. So we'll see. Again, really great card. Good price at this point. I don't really see it going anywhere below that unless somehow items just goes away. All right, so moving into Rise of the Floodborn, we have Beast. Beast, he's going up, guys. He's at $44, almost $45. That is a pretty big increase. It's a $3 increase, or almost $3.70 increase over the last 7 days. People are remembering how good Beast is, and his value is going up. Now, I think his cap is probably around this $45 mark, maybe 50 if we get there. We just didn't get a great, shift target for Beast. But the thing is about this card, we're getting further away from set 2. And if they print us like a really good 1 or 2 drop Beast, like I'm talking about just something super strong, there's a chance that this card could like skyrocket over time. Right now, he's not really getting shifted out early, and I think that that's his downfall. Morph really hasn't worked out in a lot of these decks. But if you ever get a really, really good 2-drop Beast, so you can shift this for 3 on turn 3, this card has a huge, huge potential. So as of right now, it's an expensive card. It's not really going to come down. This is one of the best steel cards out there. They have to do something, or you get to draw cards. Drawing cards in Lorcana is king. Next up in Rise of Floodborn is Cogsworth. Now, Cogsworth is only $3.58. It's up almost 10%, so it's up 34 cents for the last 7 days. This is another one of those cards that's just a really good card. When it comes down, it shuts down a lot of decks. So if you think about any kind of steel deck with their removal, 1 or 2 cogs negates pretty much everything in their deck. So this is a card that's really, really good, and I foresee him continuing to be good as the blue decks stick around, because this is a quick answer for any of those Steel X type decks. So whether it's Steel Emerald or Steel Song or anything like that, it negates a lot of what they're doing, and you get to kind of do whatever you want to do on your board without having to really be worried about your stuff being removed. All right, so another card that's really telling us where the meta lies and what people are looking at is Cinderella. So Cinderella, Ballroom Sensation, is being used for a lot of these Steel Song decks, and it is going up for this entire last week. So $3.77, that is an increase of 25 cents over the last 7 days. And again, I think it's just because Steel Song is going to look like a really good deck going into this next meta, as well as this card gets some play in the Emerald, Amber, Under the Sea deck. So yeah, it's a good card. Good card to pick up if you don't have one of the best 1-drops, giving you the ability to sing for 3. So if you're playing songs, a definitely must have in most decks. All right, so the last card I wanted to bring up, again, not a huge expensive card, but it is a turn from what we were seeing with the card, is Lady Tramaine. The Lady Tramaine has been going down for a little while, but she's finally turned the corner. She's starting to go back up. She's only $1.50, but she has had an increase of 23 cents over the last 7 days. So kind of coming back, a lot of people are trying to figure out, like we talked about last week, what's my split between this card, Medusa, or any of the other removal spells. And I believe this is one of those cards that will stay anywhere between $1 to $2, somewhere in there. I don't think it's ever going to get back up to $5 like we were seeing. There's just too many options for removal, but as a 2 of or something like that in a deck, it's going to stick around in the format. All right, so going into chapter 1, the few cards that are really making, strides to continue with their price is going to be Rapunzel. So Rapunzel is a $44, almost $45 card. It's up 10%, so another $4 for the week, and going to continue to rise. Now, the thing about all these cards we're looking in set 1 is the further we get away from set 1, we're not really hearing any kind of reprints and things like that. We're starting to see these prices go up and up and up. At this point, most of all the chapter 1 product has been put out there, whether it was Gen Con this other week, they were selling troves and things like that, or the release in some of the other countries. Yeah, it's done. I mean, yeah, we're going to get some of the Asian countries getting Lorcana, but now we're going to be in different languages over there. So if you like different languages on your card, you can probably pick up stuff there. But as far as the English set 1 printings, it looks like a lot of that now is dried up. And so we're going to start to see, especially these legendaries, start to rise in price over the next few months. And then eventually, unless we ever get some kind of announcement of a reprint or some type of format where we're going to have like an extended and a standard or something like that, a lot of these cards may just continue to rise if they're already playable, like cards like Rapunzel. And of course, we're seeing the same thing when it comes to Lilo. We've been talking about the aggro decks. We saw Piglet already rising here, and Lilo is doing the same thing. So Lilo now is $6.43, which is crazy because this card was under $2 just a little bit ago. And now you're getting rises of like 33% over the last 7 days. So that's over $2 increase. You can see the graph there. She's shooting up. And again, it just comes down to being in those aggro decks and everybody focusing in on those cards. And then from Lilo, we have Maleficent biding her time. Same thing there, a huge staple when it comes to this Amber Amethyst aggro deck. The card is $6.82. So again, just continuing to go up. That's an 18% increase. So, $1.30 on this card. And it's just because it's 1, it tasks for 2. And yeah, you're going to put that in your aggro deck. The last card we're going to look at as far as the ones that are going up is Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. So we just talked about all these aggro decks and things like that. We've talked about the different decks that are starting to pop up to fight that, like we had Mulan earlier. Well, Tinkerbell is one of those great cards that fights aggro decks very, very well. If you can shift her out on a smaller Tinkerbell on turn 4, you can really wreck a board when you're doing 1 damage to all these Lilos and Maleficents and things like that. And this is the reason why she's going up. So she's at $10.82. That is a 13% increase. So $1.43 for the last 7 days. And yeah, I think that this card is probably maybe like a $15 card over the next month or two. Again, unless we really see some of these other decks just be too oppressive to be able to, play your Tinkerbell. This is the other reason why we're seeing Cogsworth also spike up that we talked about before, because one, Cogsworth pretty much negates this ability. And this is where we saw a lot of the steel decks kind of fall off around set 3 into set 4 until it made its return towards the end of set 4. All right, so moving on from going up to going down, we've got a couple cards I want to kind of pick and choose to look at as those cards that are going down. And Flynn is where we're going to start. So Flynn Rider, Frenemy, has been one of those cards that's been a staple throughout set 4. And right now, we've started to see kind of the fall of Flynn. Flynn was $5 a few days ago, and now he's $3.74. So he's starting to come down. People are starting to kind of get away from him because he's been able to get answered pretty easily. He's down 20%, so that's 75 cents from the last 7 days. And I do consider this card to probably fall a little bit more. I think that this card in general, again, it's a rare type card, so it's going to be probably $2.50 to $3 is where it kind of lands, where it settles at some point. I think this was a great card when we were in set 4, but looking into set 5, there's a lot of cards where you're going to have a better answer on turn 3 than just Sisu. One, Sisu can be removed, but but also there's a lot of 2-drops and a lot of people going more aggro to where Flynn can, has something that's already challenging his particular ability on turn 2 or turn 3. So all in all, I think the card is still a great card. I think it's going to find decks that it wants to be good in. But at this point, I think this package in general, especially in the first month of the new set, is probably going to kind of go away for a little bit. All right, so another surprising card that's coming down is Ursula, Deceiver of All. So the Double Sing Ursula is a really, really good card. And yeah, it's still $19. It's still a pretty good card, but it is down $1.75 for the last 7 days. So keep that in mind as you're looking at, maybe what time to pick it up. I don't think this card goes anywhere below $15. It's still going to be a great card. But as we're seeing, a lot of those cheap removal spells that she was singing before kind of aren't being used as much currently. Again, people are getting away from Emerald because of the Bucky nerf change, whatever you want to call it. But at this point, I think people are going to go back to Emerald and she will become a card. So yeah, just keep an eye on her. I do think she may come down a couple more dollars over the next week or two, but then I think she's going to turn the corner as we actually figure out what the meta looks like in set 5. All right, so the last card I want to look at is Tamatoa. Now, Tamatoa is still $6.40, but it is down 11% for the last 7 days. So it's like 71 cents. And again, I think that this is because people are trying to figure out what the numbers look like in a lot of these decks. You have Mufasa coming in, so you have to figure out where do you put Mufasa. Are you just shaving one of the Tamatoas off? Maybe you only have 2 Tamatoas in the deck compared to literally 2 or 3 weeks ago. We had 4 Tamatoas in the deck. And I think that that's the reason why this card's coming down a little bit. Again, just the fact that people don't necessarily need a play set. Mufasa's the big shiny, new card coming out now, and you're trying to slot maybe 2 Mufasas over 2 of the Tamatoas. So still a great card, still going to be used, but this card does have that ability to maybe come down another $1 or so. But again, it could just skyrocket if more people figure out that they need to be playing blue, and then they have to go find their Tamatoas. All right, so the last thing we're going to be looking at is those best sellers. And of course, yeah, we're going to see a lot of set 5 Shimmering Skies being in the best sellers. I did want to kind of point this out because there's a few cards in here that you probably should keep an eye on. Right now, Daisy Duck, I think she's way overpriced. Yes, she's going to be in a lot of decks and a lot of people are going to need them. But right now, I think her price is super high because there's just not as many being opened right now. And again, next week, we're going to get the big box stores getting the product. So a lot of product is going to get open next week. But it is one of those cards that's a bestseller and it makes perfect sense. Moving from that, we have Pete. I'm going to skip over Madame Mim right now because I think Madame Mim is one of those cards where people are they're anticipating her being good. A lot of the Mims and Merlins and stuff were good. I don't know how well she actually will be. So we'll have to see, but it is one of the cards a lot of people are picking up in anticipation. But Pete is one of those cards that will be meta defining. So the thing about Pete, and keep in mind, you get this Pete in the starter decks. So his price is probably not going to be that much, but it is one of those cards that everybody understands they need to get their play sets. Again, going back to all our play sets video, I'm sure he's going to show up once we get to the fact of refreshing that list one more time, moving from set 5 to set 6. I'm sure he's going to find his way on there, and he's doing really good right now, and a lot of people are wanting to pick him up. Now you can see the rest of the list, 4 through 10 over there, and again, it's all Shimmering Skies. At this point, everybody's trying to pick up the cards for Shimmering Skies. That's what it's going to look like over the next 2 weeks. So I'm just excited to see what those top 3 are going to be as they pop into this list. We'll definitely check in each week to see how those are moving and shaking. And I expect to see a few more of the legendaries pop up towards the top as their price, settles. Again, we do have Naveen on the list, but as you can see, like Mufasa's not on that list. So give it a couple weeks. Let's see where these cards start to, fall in their prices and how much are getting used in each of the decks and things like that. And this list could shift very heavily over the next week or two. And there you have it, guys. That was this Wednesday's Market Watch. Again, appreciate if you're still watching this and hanging with us. Appreciate all you guys that have hit the sub button. Now, we just got to YouTube partner and the fact that we can make memberships. So we're going to be starting to do that next week. We're going to have a couple different tiers if you guys want to help support the channel. But I'm interested from you guys. What would you like to see in one of those tiers? What's a benefit we can give you guys so that you supporting the channel, you're getting a little bit extra back for being one of those members? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you haven't already done it, hit the sub button. It's free and it does support us because we are still working for that 1,000 subs so that we can maybe start to make money off of ads and things like that with the channel. Appreciate you guys. And until next time, y'all take it easy.